Welcome to the Remember Your Nature podcast. My name is Faith Hannah Corbin, and today I'm here to share my story with you with the intention of fully recognizing how valuable it is, and it was for me, especially during times of confusion, to reverse engineer the experiences of other people that really inspire me, that encourage me by their being and by what they embody in the world to be the best version of myself. And I acknowledge how much wisdom I have as just a 24-year-old and how beneficial it could be for other people to hear what I have been through to get to where I am right now, which is just spiritually grounded and feeling resilient in my life and not having everything figured out, but feeling really confident in my ability to create and really relaxed in a knowing that everything that is meant for me, the extraordinary life that I am leading and that will continue to build, is just my birthright and it's already happening. And so I wanted to begin the story with reading an excerpt from Radical Eco-Psychology on page 74, kind of going with this theme of making the jump from conditioned existence to creative living. So as we are brought into the world, we are conditioned to be a certain thing. We are conditioned to be a certain person, and we gain all of these ideas based on our culture and based on so many different factors, the powers that be, where we think, okay, this is what it means to be alive. This is what I should value. This is what I should do. This is who I should be. And then there is a moment of awakening, a reckoning with, wait, maybe I am not these identities. And there's a spaciousness of these things that I think are real. What are they coming from? And then you start to awaken to your unique truth and recognize that we are creative beings and there is a life, a blueprint that's unique for us, our fulfillment that's unique to us. And so in between that jump from conditioned powerlessness, feeling that you do not have the power to create, to being fully embodied in your creativity and fully trailblazing your own life, there is an awkward transition. And I know it well. I am still going through it, and I think that it'll be a lifelong journey. But I'm feeling a little bit more stable in my ability to handle the uncertainty and the unknown that comes from creative living. And so this is what the intention is. So in Radical Ego-Psychology, what I wanted to share is this. The vision of a vital existence within an experiential framework is that of persons who move flexibly and awarely from experience to experience, making satisfying contact with the world, responding openly and creatively to new life situations. Their figure-ground relationship is elastic and reversible, such that they experience their lives hermeneutically, as a forward-moving dialectic between symbols and felt meaning, forever changing their understanding of things as they continually enrich the basis of their experiencing. In a pathogenic environment, however, this original mode of experiencing must be sacrificed because it is too dangerous a way to live. If our world is not a place in which our trust and faith can flourish, then the need for security and control wins out over the need for open contact and growth. Our adjustments then include finding patterns of living that seem to work best, all things considered, and sticking to them for the relative safety or comfort they provide. We stop being a process and instead take refuge in stasis, insist on a familial world, cling to the status quo. The fear is that to change or step out of our habitual patterns will only stir up distress we would rather not feel or else make matters worse. From a ground of hurtful experience, we imagine that the same injuries we experienced in the past will be repeated in the future, even if we sense these only as a general dread or aversion, and interpret the world in this unchanging light. And I think this is an interesting note to begin with, this understanding that we're kind of all born into this conditioned fear. And to be able to connect to our creative sense, our sense of trust and faith in the world, we have to reconcile with this existential and ontological fear that we have, that is influencing our need to cling onto safety and security. And how this manifested in my life was that I had a lot of fear. I had a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety and a lot of feeling like I can't express myself, feeling that I'm not safe. And this manifested in a many long years experience of having asthma, but kind of like the extreme and worst kind. And I was hospitalized a bunch, always in and out of doctors. And I learned as a child that to heal myself, to find balance within my own system, I searched for something outside of myself. So that was an albuterol inhaler. That was steroids, prednisones to open up my airways. That was the doctors. That was literally anything. And of course, I was a child, so that was the only thing that I knew. But that asthma the root of that was this root chakra imbalance, feeling unsafe, feeling unsafe in my body and feeling unsafe in the world. And I coped with all this stress by eating way too much, and I had a pretty disordered relationship with food where I would overeat all the time and I would use it to comfort myself because I didn't have the tools or the resources to be able to express or understand my emotions or regulate my nervous system. And this feeling overweight and also feeling imprisoned in my body made me have a very low sense of self-esteem and a very low um, sense of confidence within myself and within my ability to like take up space and be loved for it. I kind of overcompensated by being super excellent in school, and I was always a straight A student all the way from my youngest years. And I think that I also really wanted to show the masculine aspect of existence to, because the masculine aspect of existence is the one that's really praised in society. So I wanted to show that I am strong, that I am disciplined, that I am intellectual. And I also really wanted I think unconsciously, my father's approval, the approval of the masculine. And so, yeah, I strived really hard, but I was also like really smart. I've always been a really smart girl and always really good at school. So that really served me well, but was very dissociated from my body most of my childhood up until I was about like 18 years old. I had no awareness of my musculature, no awareness of like where my body was in space, no awareness of hunger cues or intuition or anything like that. I kind of just felt that life was, we were just talking heads and that we are our thoughts and we are these ideas that are running through our heads, and like that's really real, and a lot of anxiety about who I was and taking up space. And I learned how to isolate a lot, so I spent a lot of time alone, um, which really served me because it's helped me kind of understand and foster a beautiful personality, I would have to say, because I spent so much time alone. But that was definitely a coping mechanism that I've been unlearning how to connect with other people. And I didn't really take good care of myself. I mean, I didn't know how. And I smoked vapes in high school, and I also smoked a lot of weed. I'm not saying that smoking weed is bad, but in terms of my asthma, it was not life serving for sure. But I, during that time, lost some weight and became a bit stronger in my body. I was also becoming a young woman, so just growing up. And I went to college. And this was the first time where I started to expand a bit, expand in my ideas because I also grew up in the Christian church and I went to Christian private school my whole life. So I was given a doctrine and given these ideas about what is the meaning of life, why are we here, and what is the point of this life. So I'm really grateful for that because from a young age, it has really encouraged me to question what is the nature of this life? Who am I? What am I supposed to be doing with my life? And kind of chewing on these existential questions, these big questions of meaning, and I've always thought deeply about them. But with the Christian church, felt that there were some things that weren't fully resonating, but I didn't really understand how to articulate that. And I also was told that I really had to believe in the authority that was telling me that this is the truth. So I felt a lot of confusion. And by the time I left for college, I had a lot of existential fear, because the fear is too that if you do not believe in this one way, specifically in the way that these people are communicating it to you, then eternal damnation. Eternal damnation. That's a big thing to put on a child, for sure. So I felt had a lot of qualms. I was a lot of confusion and had a lot of qualms with even the word God or spirituality, because I just thought that, well, that seems like it's full of shame and judgment and doesn't support me in expressing myself. So I'm just gonna close that chapter, put it away, not look at it, and I'm gonna go to college and live my best life. Now, this was the first time that I was in an institution that wasn't religious affiliated. So it was actually really expanding and really good for me. At this time, too, I started to get into bass music, electronic music, going to raves, and started to experiment with psychedelics and different realms of consciousness. Just a little bit, but enough to where there was something knocking on my psyche like, hello, hello, there's something more than what you thought was true. And so that was super interesting. And I was then introduced to individuals like Alan Watts and Ram Dass, and taking acid in my friend's dorm room. But then COVID hit and I left. And as you can imagine, this was a bit of a difficult experience to have my whole family at home, to be leaving college and to come into the unknown. And I'm sure that you have your own initial lockdown story as well. But I learned quickly that I needed something to be able to support me during this time, something to show up for that would make me feel excited. And previously to lockdown, I took a few yoga classes in college, was very beginner, but felt interested in it. And I started practicing yoga on YouTube with Yoga with Adriene. Shout out to Yoga with Adriene. I love that woman. But every single day I started to practice, and I showed up on my mat, and that was also the first time that I had true discipline with something. And what I loved about it was the way that it made me feel strong. Every day I would show up and I would get stronger, and I would be able to flow in and out with more fluidity, with less awkwardness as I continued to practice. And also at this time, I would have yoga, and then I would go for these ritual walks every single day at a beautiful park near my house that was full of these poplar trees. And it was during the summer, and I would sit with THC and I would go for a walk. And I just remember that through my yoga practice, I started to become embodied. I began to step into my body. Like there was this moment where I was walking and I felt my calf for the first time. Like, oh my God, this is what my calf muscle feels like. Like I didn't know. I didn't know. And that was so beautiful. And so I just kept practicing more and more and more and more. And during that summer, my sister and I think that she'll be fine with me speaking about this, but we took an acid or a dose of acid, and I just practiced sun salutations on my deck for I don't know how long, but I experienced flow state, physical flow state in my yoga practice for the first time. It was like my body just knew how to fluidly move. There was no thinking, there was no trying. I was just in the sun salutation. I was creating shapes, and it was this really powerful experience that I was having. And at the same time, too, I'm also using the light whip and dancing and connecting more to a physical sense of flow state. And I remember after that yoga session on acid, I was looking into the forest, the trees that surround my house, and I was just seeing all of these interconnected shapes, and it was the flower of life. And I I saw my energy centers that day. I saw the way that my energy is constituted on my spine. And it was little moments like this that began to crack me open to something that life was a bit deeper. It's a bit deeper. It's getting deeper. And after this, COVID dissipated a bit, and I moved back into college, into my own studio apartment during my sophomore year, which I lived in my sophomore year until my senior year. Now, this little detail I feel is so important because it was the first time I was able to live in a space that fostered my own coherence and harmony, because it was the first time that I could live in a functional space and in my own energetic field. And I do not want to understate how massive that was for me on my journey. And at that time, I entered into my first relationship, which was very much rooted in a need to be seen and validated. And I had never had anyone be interested in me before. So someone being interested in me was a huge deal, and I instantly attached myself to it. But it was the first time where I experienced love, and I loved another being romantically, and another being romantically loved me and admired me and was devoted to me. And I am so grateful for this experience because it really opened me to feeling my heart, to being in my heart. Because before I felt that I was not feeling much, like really just feeling like a five all of the time, not really feeling very joyful, not really feeling really sorrowful. Like, I don't think that I ever experienced true grief or sorrow, really intense low emotions. And so therefore I was never really feeling high joyful emotions. Like, I wasn't a joyful child at all. I think when I was young, maybe so, but once I got to adolescence and everything was happening, I was definitely just feeling kind of depressed and meaningless and not feeling. So being in this relationship opened myself to feeling, and knowing that it wasn't aligned energetically from the beginning, and there was a lot of hardship, but ending the relationship was really such a gift because I allowed myself to process grief. I allowed myself to really process those low emotions, and that cracked me open to the possibility of experiencing the other side of those low emotions. And I'm so grateful. And I was also doing my 200-hour yoga teacher training at this period, and I was also in school. And that was absolutely profound for the strength of my body. I mean, I would go to these really intense classes every single day, and also understanding more about the yogic philosophy and the philosophy of life. I was introduced to the 8 limbs of yoga, understanding more about the energetic systems of the body, and integrating this knowledge as well as having an embodied physical practice. And then learning in school and being very disciplined there. I was just flowing through life and experiencing really high, elevated emotional states, feeling really confident within myself, and feeling really in love and on purpose with what I was doing. And it was such a beautiful time. I was also practicing ecstatic dance every single week, and having the ability to have sovereign movement, like yes, structured movement within the yogic system, but then coming to dance and being able to move as my body was calling myself to move was absolutely so incredible for this sense of connecting to the fluidity of my body and continuing to understand the language of my body. And those, I remember those first ecstatic dances was like some of the most peak moments, you know, like feeling so good and feeling so much joy. And I was also studying English at the time. And I was in the library at my school and I picked up this book called Elephant in the Brain: Hidden Motives in Everyday Life. And it was written by Kevin Simler and Robin Hanson. I remember reading the book just because I was interested. And the contents of the book really expanded my awareness. And it was the first time I consciously, by guidance of someone else, like articulation by someone else, that I am not my thoughts, that made me question, like, maybe what I am thinking, these things that I'm identifying with, of who I think that I am, isn't actually who I am. And there's a lot of external forces that are influencing the way that I'm thinking, and that I am not that. And I thought really deeply about this. And I changed my major to psychology because I felt just more resonant and with what I was experiencing in my life through yoga. And the other time that I had that I wasn't studying or I wasn't practicing, I was listening to YouTube videos and podcasts about how to be an optimal human, how to rise to your fullest potential. I really loved the YouTube channel After School and was opening my mind to these ideas that were really expanding my consciousness and my perspective. So studying psychology felt really aligned. And in my junior year, my first class in psychology, it was called Research Methods. And I came into the class not knowing that my professor would end up being my elder, my mentor, and my lifelong friend. I discovered that this PhD in developmental psychology is a spiritual leader in a Lakota community that practiced ceremony in the area that I was in. And I was so curious. At that point, I was really interested in diving more into the realms of consciousness and understanding more about spirituality and different ways of connecting to the divine. And so I went to a ceremony that she was offering, which was called Going to the Water. And it was my first Lakota ceremony. It was so special at the beach, going into the water 7 times to release something, to let something go, and to come into a new paradigm, into a new way. And I just remember like witnessing her on that beach with her regalia on and her medicine pouch, and the way that she was so clear, shining so bright, speaking to us and holding space in a way that was so compassionate, and being in ceremony, like enacting ceremony and having this embodied experience of going into the water to shed, to release. And I just, I didn't have words to articulate, but I knew, oh my goodness, like there's something here and I need to continue to show up. So, by the grace of God, I ended up really integrating into this community and showing up for ceremony and sitting in sweat lodges that were facilitated by such authentic leaders, leaders that have gone through rigorous ceremony and had dreams and have been initiated by their elder on the reservation in South Dakota, and having the experience of witnessing my elders hold space for the people and hold the responsibility of that, and to open my awareness to truth that couldn't be seen, increasing my ability to speak to the rocks, to allow the trees to speak to me and to receive their wisdom. to be able to think about the directions and to feel the wind and know that there is a message there. And most importantly, to know that the work that I'm doing on myself emotionally to develop who I am, it's not just mine and it's not just for me. That what I have and what I have inherited is old, it's ancient. And when I shift a pattern here in my own body, that I am shifting that pattern for 7 generations back and 7 generations forward. And that it's so much bigger than me. And being in the ceremony space also continue to open myself up to indigenous ways of being and perceiving the world. That things aren't linear, but cyclical. Things spiral. Our evolution is in a spiral. And that there's so much happening that we cannot see. And we have the ability to continue to deepen in our attunement to energy. And there's so much happening all at once. And the voice of God is speaking to us from so many different directions. And all we have to do is open ourselves up to the presence of it. And one of the most profound moments that I had with this community was this ceremony that they have every single year. The first year I went, called the forgiveness ceremony, I was on my menstrual cycle. And there's two parts of the ceremony. One where the quote unquote main happening was happening around this huge oak tree, as well as a sweat lodge. And then on the other side, there's a moon lodge for women and women that are on their moon cycle. And I was bleeding, so I couldn't be a part of the masculine ceremonies that were happening. But I was brought into the moon lodge. And of course I was sad because I was like, oh man, like I want to be a part of the sweat lodge. I haven't done a sweat lodge. I really want to do it. I want to be around the tree. I want to pray. I want to do what everyone else is doing. I want to be where the tiki torches are, you know? But I was brought to this really beautifully curated space. It was just a blanket and some flowers, some little items that were symbolic, that were sacred, that were representative, and had these grandmothers come and speak and thank me for what I was offering to the space, to the ceremony. Thank me for the work that I was doing through my blood. And telling me that my moon time, this time where I am bleeding, I am in the height of my power. And that was a new way of understanding, because everything before told me that my menstrual cycle was just an inconvenience and was getting in the way of my potential. That I just pretended that it wasn't there, take ibuprofen, put in a tampon, and I'm continuing to strive and work and be disciplined and strong. And I didn't understand you were in the height of your power, and I still took ibuprofen, and I still felt sad that I couldn't be a part of that ceremony that year. But it was an invitation and a gift for integration. And the next year at the forgiveness ceremony, I wasn't bleeding, and I was also more integrated within the community, more known, and I had experienced ceremony before, so I understood a little bit more about what was happening and how to orient myself. And that was the most tangible experience of God I had ever felt in my life up to that point. Through nothing but ceremony, through ritual, through the intentional use of time and space, and by surrendering to the medicine of these ancient people and really opening to what the ceremony is encouraging, which is the upheaval of energy, the awakening of energy, to be able to look at it, to be able to purge it, to be able to let it go, healing lineages. And I would watch my elders as they held space and just see their light, see their power, and see things that cannot be explained, that are continuing to knock on my psyche and show me, hey, it gets deeper. There is a lot more happening than you think. And I felt really humbled to be a part of this, watching my elders and acknowledging how much I don't know, learning how to give thanks and to be in right relationship with the earth, understanding how ancient peoples have interacted with the earth for millennia, and witnessing how we are as a modern society, and just becoming attuned to, okay, there's a lot. There's a lot that's missing, and there's a lot that's needing to be remembered. So I just continued to be a college student, a yoga teacher, sitting in ceremony, studying diligently. And I honestly love school. I've always loved school. I've always loved learning. I joined the honors college and I was initiated into various honor societies. And yes, there was a part of me that was perfectionist and always felt that I needed to perform high. But there's also a part of me that at this point had the conscious awareness of, I want to be the best version of myself. I want to rise to my highest potential. And so I tried my best and I worked really hard. And I asked myself, we only have this one life, so why not see how far we can go in it? And this is when, during my senior year, I took a class called Eco Psychology by another PhD in developmental psychology who has become my really close friend. And this class really just brought everything home to me, because reading Radical Ego Psychology by Andy Fisher, which is who I referenced in the beginning of the podcast, it was putting to words all of these really profound experiences I was having, especially in ceremony and especially attuning myself to the indigenous way of being. And I knew that this was somehow so true for me and so true from what I understand of the evolution of humanity and where we are now, and how modernity has affected our consciousness and what we have forgotten, and what I am experiencing in my body through yoga and what my elders are showing me, that this is necessary, this is so important, and this truth needs to continue to be reverberated, and that it's somehow connected to my life purpose here on earth. And so I graduated from college, summa cum laude, from the honors college, and I was the most distinguished student in my department for my graduating year. And I think that this just shows that I am lucky, and God has shown me so much and has gifted me so much. And for some reason, I am supposed to be a bright, shining light and leader in this world. And I understand things really quickly, and I have a voracious desire to understand complex things and to be able to share them. So I'm so grateful for my college experience, and I had matured and grown and absorbed and assimilated wisdom that, like, sometimes takes a whole lifetime to understand. And at the same time, I was still a 22-year-old who felt like a little girl in so many ways. Because my whole life I had been taking care of my family. My dad put me through college. He paid for my rent the entire time. And so I was not in survival mode. And I felt, honestly, a responsibility to make the most out of what I had been given. I knew that my base needs were always taken care of. And they always were. And I was never in the experience of having to really figure it out for myself yet. And I was not ready to go into the world on my own. So I decided to go back home and live with my parents and figure out what the next chapter would look like for me. When I was in school, I just thought, okay, cool. I'm really good at this school thing, so I'm just going to go to graduate school. I'm going to go get my PhD. It's going to be fully funded. It's all going to work out. I don't have to figure out anything on my own. There's a plan there, there's a track there. There's nothing that needs to be unknown for me, and that made me feel good and in control. But I quickly realized that I wasn't ready to just go off to grad school, that there was something more for me, and I had the awareness that I'm destined for extraordinary, nothing less than extraordinary. And that means that I'm going to have to co create instead of just fall into a path that feels safe. And at the same time, I shaved all of my hair off. I shaved my head. Like a year prior of my graduation, my best friend and I took some mushrooms in my apartment. And she had a moment of looking at herself in the mirror and like really viscerally acknowledging that she was not and she is not her external appearance, and that she has found so much identity in her external appearance as well as how other people validate her in her external experience. So I was buttering toast for the both of us in my kitchen, and she took my scissors and she just started cutting off her hair. And then I took my electric hair trimmer and we were playing heavy bass music in my apartment, and I just started shaving her head and shaving all her hair off. So I was super inspired by her journey of having no hair and then growing it back and everything that she had gone through to be able to endure that and all of her lessons. And I knew, I was like, fuck, okay, I have to do this too. And so when I graduated, I shaved my hair off. And it felt like the most radical act of love that I could give myself, to cut it all off and then to learn how to fully accept myself as I am, even if others cannot reflect my beauty. So, with a shaved head and no idea of what my next move was, I moved home with my parents and I exhaled. And now I would title the next chapter of my life as Death and the Feminine, as well as dun 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 victimhood. I was so humbled. I was absolutely so humbled during this chapter of my life because I had always been in a system. I had always been in an environment where other people are telling me exactly what to do, exactly how to walk, exactly what to create, so that I could check off boxes, so I could get a certain certification. So whatever it may be, just always having something to do because I was in a system. And it was the first time I was out of a system, and I felt really overwhelmed by it. And I also knew, because of the awareness that I had, that like I cannot consciously choose a life path that is not aligned with my heart and the highest truth, and is also not continuing to perpetuate the bullshit that is happening in the world. Like I knew that I couldn't be a part of those systems. And I mean, I'm still a part of the system now. I live in the United States, and it's hard to be like disconnect from all of the systems. But in terms of what life path that I was going to go on, like go into institutions and do academia, or just find a regular job and make money but do something that like I really didn't want to do, I just knew that I can't. My eyes have already been opened. I have seen God. I have seen and felt God in my body. I have listened to the rocks. I have listened to the water. I have felt the wind whispering into my body. And I have seen way too much to do and follow the safe conventional route. I'm not saying the safe conventional route is bad, but I personally could not make that choice. And so I would regularly find myself sobbing in the fetal position on the floor in my room because there was so much that I wanted to do, all of these huge ideas, all of this potential I was just sitting on, and I had absolutely no idea even what step to take that day to move towards that thing. And I also didn't know anyone, and I had never in my life had this much time and space to sit with myself with nothing to do. So, I was introduced to the Vipassana meditation retreats when I was teaching yoga back in Florida. And I decided to do a 10-day silent meditation retreat. And I learned how to meditate. And I meditated a lot. I had meditated before. I started meditating during my yoga teacher training, but I had never, like, really, I feel like, really meditated. And so doing this Vipassana retreat was a huge catalyst for me to go in, to go so in, to connect to that part of myself that is no identity, that is just space, that is just awareness, that is just pure experience. And completely disconnecting from the outside world. And after my meditation retreat, I meditated and sat in silence a lot. I mean, a lot. And then I really started to embody my menstrual cycle. And I had been introduced to this new way of interacting with the menstrual cycle in my ceremony times and started to um, learn more about women's teachings and the importance and the necessity of the feminine and the power of the feminine, and how there's such a lack of presence of the feminine in our modern culture. But I learned more about the menstrual cycle and generally how each one is, affects us. And I started to just slowly embody that and really give myself time and space to rest and to learn how to rest and to not have shame about it. And I consciously allowed myself to die, like, over and over and over again, using my menstrual cycle as a spiritual practice, as well as all of the other spiritual practices that I was engaged in during the time. And I was really honest with myself, and I allowed myself to fall apart. So used to being perfect, to having everything together, to being the top of my class, to always having the discipline and the rigor and the intelligence to be able to visualize and actualize. And I just allowed myself to fall apart. I numbed myself with TV. I ate way more than I needed to. I allowed myself to sleep in. And I chose to work a job so that I was doing at least something. And I was helping a young woman with disability. And that was really, really rewarding work in its nature. And I did something similar in college as well. But I knew that that was not what I really wanted to do. And so my body knew that my life force energy was not aligning, was not being channeled for my highest creativity, for my highest potential. And so during this chapter of my life of just numbing and working and kind of just drifting along consciously, though, meditating, practicing yoga, and witnessing all of it, and also journaling so much, journaling so much, doing so much introspection, and having so much time being alone. It was just like a time full of letting go and of making peace with my process and making peace with my humanity. So I was experiencing that. It was winter and cold for many months, and I really honestly felt like a victim. And I allowed myself to feel that my external circumstances had power over me, and I didn't know how to move through that resistance. And I felt really gray and depressed during this time. But I knew that this was exactly what I needed to go through on my journey. Like, all of my journal entries were like, this is the process, trust the process, everything is happening as it's supposed to. And I was also kind of operating off of the philosophy of like attract, don't force. And I thought that that meant that you kind of hope and pray and visualize and things just happen for you without taking action. And I was absolutely certain that this was exactly what I needed to go through. And this time of letting go and allowing myself to fall apart, allowing myself to be confused, allowing myself to witness all of my patterns and not just the patterns that are living within me, but also witnessing them in my family, in my parents, being in the house in which I grew up in, witnessing all those patterns with love and compassion, learning not to shame them, and just allowing them to take their course was absolutely necessary for my ability to rise. That I can only experience the height of beauty and joy and wonder and possibility in this life if I allow myself to descend and to go down deep in and being so honest and truthful with what I see there and having the courage to be able to witness it, to feel it, and to let it go. And so I knew, okay, this is what I'm going through now, and that is absolutely necessary. And I was really sad in bed one day, and I said to myself, Faith, you have to do something that is in alignment with the life that you know you are meant to live. You have to take an action. So I booked my 300-hour yoga teacher training in India, which was a huge dream of mine that I never even thought was really possible for myself when I was in college. It was always like, wow, I would love to do my training in India. But I booked it. And I decided that I was going to work until that trip came. And then I was going to be in India for a few months. And then I was going to figure it out. So here I am, never traveled internationally before, with my big heavy suitcase with books and clothes and no idea about the climate or what I was about to be facing. And I walked into the airport so nervous with these two big like sumo oranges in my backpack. Like everything was so packed to the brim. I felt so chaotic. My heart was beating so fast, but I just got on that plane and I went to India and I figured it out. And I am so grateful that I did. But it was very, very empowering and powerful. And I did my training in the south of India in this beautiful eco ashram, Ayurvedic eco ashram in Karnataka, and was taught yoga by people whom this is their blood and their lineage. And that was what was really important for me because I understood the importance of understanding the origins of spiritual practice and understanding the origins, the roots of spiritual text and spiritual philosophy. And so going to India felt like a really important step for me to understand what the practice actually was. And the training was really great. I mean, I learned so much about the physical asana, and I definitely pushed myself really hard and kind of akin to that sense of perfectionism and needing to be excellent. I was really pushing myself to contort in different asanas and always trying to be able to be this, not be the strongest, but I always wanted to be able to do everything, you know? And I did have some awareness and some mindfulness of like, oh, I probably shouldn't go that far, but honestly, not that much. But what was most potent for me was more the energetic and philosophical teachings of the yogic practice, and also seeing how these Indian teachers actually oriented themselves around the practice and understanding more about the energy of Shiva and Shakti, yin and yang, masculine and feminine, understanding how to balance the nervous system, and that all the physical practice is, it's just a preparation for the body to be able to be strong and solid, comfortable and easeful, to be able to then manifest stillness and stillness of the mind and find equanimity but in within the body to be able to experience that, connection to the divine, that God consciousness. It's just, for me, what I understand yoga to be is just a practice of balancing and regulating the nervous system and regulating yourself with your physical environment and learning how to be balanced and centered no matter what is expanding or contracting, or no matter what chaos or calmness is around you. And after that training, I went and I traveled around to the north of India, to Rishikesh, and I volunteered at a village in the Himalayas for a month. And I was so stimulated before all that time of doing that training, then being in the city, and then being in India is super stimulating. There's so many things going on all at once. I came to this village where people are just farming, and you wake up in the morning early, you have your breakfast, you speak with your community members, and you go out into the field. And, then people have their lunch, and then they work in the afternoons, and things are slow. People are napping, there's no rush. And it was really uncomfortable for me because I was there for a month. I remember being there for a week and I'm like, I'm here for a month. I mean, I was volunteering, but they did not have much work to do. So I had to sit with myself again, just go in. And I was like chanting mantra, I was practicing my yoga, but I decided that I'm here to do something. I'm here to create. Like, what is it that I can really do that feels really nourishing to me and to the people that I'm here to serve? So I decided to embark on creating a mural for the village. Like, in the middle of the village, I created a mandala, and I painted it in black paint. And it was a big mural, probably like 10 feet by 20, I don't know. But it was a big mural on the side of a wall. I did a huge mandala and two like life-size yogic postures that were like mirrors. They were both tree pose. And it took me, I don't know, like 10 days or something. But it was so powerful. It was so potent to have this vision. And then to have the experience of having to show up every single day, to use the resources that I have, and to make it happen. And I just kept showing up, and it was so beautiful to see all the village members come and like see the progress, and to give me compliments. And it felt really good to be able to serve and to provide beauty and value for the village, and to see how, as time went on and I continued to show up, like I just felt more and more a part of the community and getting really positive reflections. And I really loved that moment of creating and to sitting through the challenges that come when we're trying to create something beautiful and continuing to show up. And I was going to do more traveling after that, and I did. But I knew, okay, what is my plan here? Because I'm going to go home and I just feel like I've experienced what I'm supposed to experience. So I decided that when I got back from India, I was going to move out of my parents' house and go out into the world as a young woman and learn how to figure it out, because I need to, and it's absolutely necessary. So I flew home and I packed up all my things, packed up my car, and I drove back to St. Augustine, Florida, where I went to college. Strategically, because I knew that I would have people there that would take care of me and that love me. So I have a support system. And I knew that there's a lot of yoga happening. And I just like did this whole big training, so I have like more accreditation. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be a full-time yoga teacher. This is what I'm going to do. This is my plan, because I don't want to do anything that I don't really want to do. And I want to use my life force energy well in alignment with what I know and what I've learned. So I found a really cheap room to rent in Florida. It was $550 a month, and I had $5,000 in my bank account after traveling, and that was like everything that I had saved from working and living with my parents. And my plan was to just come there and to pray and meditate. And really, my number one plan was to get still enough and to remain still enough to listen to the voice of God and to allow that voice to guide where I am supposed to go. And I moved in and faced a lot of discomfort again in trying to feel my way forward. The house situation was okay, could have been much worse, but I struggled with having boundaries, and sometimes the energy in the house felt a bit volatile. So I often tried as much as possible to be out of the house. And here I was so exquisitely taken care of by my friends. It was the first time where I really admitted that I need help, that I cannot do this alone, and I was just taken in and fed and housed whenever I wanted to be. I spent so much time just being with my friends, speaking to them about my life and my truth, and being so seen and reflected, speaking about non duality and meditating and learning what it feels like to be held in the arms of my community, because genuinely I am not meant to do this alone, and it would be so much harder if I just isolated myself and tried to just figure it out. So this was a beautiful moment of surrender for me, to allow myself to be messy, to allow myself to be in the unknown, to allow things to be uncertain, to live in a house that is not perfect, to not have any money coming in, and still knowing like this is exactly what I'm supposed to be going through. And I know that this is just strengthening my spiritual juice and my spiritual strength and my ability to trust and have faith in life. And there was a Bible verse that really resonated with me that I wrote on my wall in this house during this chapter, which is James chapter 1 verse 2 through 4. Consider it all joy, my brothers and sisters, that you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance. And let endurance have its perfect result, so that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. And it was wisdom like this that was sustenance for me, that kept me knowing and that kept me trusting. And again, I learned to meditate a lot. I meditated a lot during this time because there was so much unknown in my external environment, but I knew that I could find some semblance of balance and equanimity if I just went inside. And I remember in the house that I was living in, there were next door neighbors that were super close, right outside of my window. And they would frequently be together and have dinners and be speaking really loudly and laughing really loudly, which I love for them that their family is getting together. But for me, like the sound of it until like late at night would pool into my room. And I just got so good at unconditional acceptance. I would sit on my yoga mat and I would go in, close my eyes, go in until like I didn't notice the noise anymore, until I was completely unbothered and I had absolutely no thoughts. And I meditated so much to the point that I felt that it was a bit of an escape from what was happening in my life. And it was definitely my way to cope with so much confusion and uncertainty. But I definitely reflected on that later, and I'm so grateful that I have cultivated the skill of meditation, because it is really powerful when there are things that you really don't have control over and that you just have to accept, and you can either suffer about it or just allow it and be at peace. And this was especially helpful when I've allowed this identity of being a yoga teacher start to fall apart a bit when I became attuned to the fact that actually the way that I practice yoga is hurting my body. And there's a lot that I don't resonate with in terms of the modern yoga world and the way yoga is practiced. I started to do a bit of an exploration of postural alignment and anatomy, and I did a yoga training called Ayama, which is applied yoga anatomy and muscle activation. And really stopped going to yoga studios, stopped practicing, and I was teaching yin. I had like yin class, but then learned how detrimental extended holding and collapsing your weight into your joints is for your body. So I stopped teaching yin because philosophically I didn't agree with it anymore, and or biomechanically I didn't agree with it anymore. And so this idea of me becoming a full-time yoga teacher kind of started to dissipate, and my money just kept going down. And I was just like, what am I going to do here? And mind you, I was doing what I really thought was supposed to do. And I discovered something really big in terms of navigating this confusion. I started to sit with THC again, cannabis, which I hadn't really been using for probably like 2 years or something. When I was in college, I stopped using it, and I started to use it more intentionally again when I would move or when I would meditate, because I saw the way that it just profoundly dropped me into my immediate experience, into my body, into what was immediately happening instead of my projecting, ruminating mind. And in meditation, it helped me just completely tune into my stillness, my pure awareness, my pure experience. And in my yoga practice and in my now kind of physical therapy, really connecting to the language of my body and my muscles, it deeply dropped me in there and turned up the volume of the voice of my body. And as I was trying to get out of my house kind of as much as possible and to find practices that grounded me into the truth, I would go to the beach, and I started to have this practice of sitting with THC and dancing. So I would just have my headphones on and I would go onto the beach and I would dance. And at first, I started to go when it was kind of off time. So I started to go in spaces at the beach where there weren't a lot of people. And something started to unlock here as I would put those headphones on and I would get into my body and move in a way that was unstructured, that was free, and that was sovereign. And I am rebuilding my body, rebuilding my muscles brick by brick. I'm engaging them properly and intelligently so that they are working together properly. And when your muscles are working together properly, it gives the chance for everything else in your body, your energetic channels, to work properly. So all of this is happening, and I am dancing. I'm dancing on the beach, and also on that plant medicine, I am deeply, deeply attuned to what's happening inside of my body. And I start to drop into flow state. I start to find flow state on the beach during my dances. And I close my eyes, and I am just the only one that exists. My body and my movement is the only thing that exists in the universe for me. And at first, I felt a little bit, not embarrassed, but just taking up space on the beach and like being in my bikini, or sometimes I would be in my bikini, sometimes I would like just be in a jacket or something if it was chillier. And I would notice other people on the beach, and I'm like literally dancing like nobody is watching, and people are definitely watching. But as time went on, I learned how to connect so deeply to that flow. I realized that me thinking about the person walking by me, watching me dance, it's just completely giving my power away. And it's completely taking me out of my immediate experience. And also want to comment on the most potent aspect of this experience of dancing on the beach and finding my medicine here was that, from an outsider looking in, I have no money coming in. I have no idea what I'm doing with my life. I am eating my dinners at my friend's house and like just meditating in my room, and I'm not making any plans and all of these things. And yet, I am there dancing on that beach in my body. I am looking out onto the horizon, watching the waves, watching the birds, watching the clouds, and I am feeling joy. I am feeling gratitude. I am feeling rich, wealthy, resourced. And everything on the outside doesn't make sense, but I am learning how to influence my energy from the inside and allowing myself, my life, to be created from the deepest parts of my heart. And I didn't know then, but now I'm understanding I was just influencing my energy field. I was going out into the quantum realm on that beach, and I was influencing timelines that were aligning with that vibration that I was putting out into the world. And I'm also living cyclically at this time, and I had attuned myself to the understanding, okay, God, I really would love a aligned source of income because living off my savings is not sustainable and it is not regenerative. And I'm ready to have the responsibility of working a job that is aligned with my life force energy, that is aligned with who I am, and that feels really good to be engaged in. And I put stipulations there: remote and part time, aligned with my life force energy. And I had written this list one time during my menstrual cycle, and I wrote this list of things that I wanted in a job. And I started to apply for jobs online because I recognize that I have a really impressive resume and I'm a published author in terms of academia. And my friend who taught eco psychology, we did a publication together on eco psychology. And so I have that under my belt, and I'm really like believing in this way of being and interacting with the world, and really interested in learning more about this stream of knowledge. And he texts me, he reaches out to me because we're in contact, and he's like, I met this woman at a conference for psychology, and she is an environmental psychologist, and you should really reach out to her. And so then I reach out to her, and come to find out, she is an environmental psychologist who is a consultant for conservation organizations. And she is most interested, or she's an expert in understanding the human dimension of environmental issues. And she influences the human dimension of conservation issues by creating things called behavior change campaigns, which are helping people change their behavior, change one behavior to another behavior that is more sustainable and that will positively benefit the community as well as the environmental issue that the conservation organization is trying to positively affect. And so she's in this really fucking cool line of work that is so aligned with who I am and that is so aligned with my interests. And she's like, yeah, I'm needing someone to be contract help for me as I start my own business. And by the grace of God, I get connected by this woman who is so amazing, just such a powerful woman, and so incredibly intelligent. And not only that, so aligned with her heart and with her mission. And she created a position for me. And this is after me praying and making a list, please, an aligned source of income, something that I feel so excited and on fire about. And it came. It came. And I got to move out of my house. I moved into my own apartment, and thus started this new chapter of me working and becoming a professional and paying my rent and being a person in the world who has a job and doing something that is really cool, really interesting, and really in the service of life. And I was also having these chronic skin rashes come up on my skin, on my breast, and on both of my arms in the same spot on either arm. And they were on my skin for like months. And I decided to go see a acupuncturist, someone who my elder recommended, who was like, this is a real healer, she will read you. And she was like, yes, this is systemic candida all over your body. and underneath of that is grief and letting go. And I was like, okay. So I then went on a very big restrictive diet, and it was the first time where I underwent a really profound detox of my body. I had never done that. I mean, I had been vegan for many years, like generally healthy, but probably a lot of glyphosate, a lot of preservatives, a lot of additives in my body. And I think the candida stems from 15 years of steroid use. Like, always had a compromised immune system. So it was time. My body was telling me through these rashes, it's time for you to clean up your diet and to clean up your physical vessel. So I'm working, living in this apartment, on this restrictive diet, fixing my posture, going to yoga, seeing my friends. Like I started going rock climbing here and there, but I really felt like, okay, like I feel like I've done the American dream. I'm living the American dream now, which is like being able to live and survive comfortably and have a job and have an apartment. And I just feel like, okay, like I've done this, I'm experiencing this. I'm feeling like I'm hitting like a ceiling of, I know that there's more. I know that there's more. And so during the next menstrual cycle that I had, I wrote a list. I was like, okay, I really want to live in conscious community where we're living close to the earth, where there's fresh water. It's a loving, safe environment with like really high vibrational people. I just had this vision. Like, I'm ready to live with other people in a way that's harmonious, working remotely, and living in a place that is gorgeous and beautiful. And I'm feeling really close and connected to nature. And I wrote that list. And during this time, I'm doing a group coaching program with a really incredible menstrual cycle coach that I've learned so much from. But I was like, yeah, does anyone know of any conscious community openings or offerings where I can come live? And they were like, yeah, actually, the house that I live in Costa Rica has a open room for a few months, and you're welcome to come and live there. And I heard that opportunity, and of course, my ego mind is like, sure, yeah, okay, like you can go and just move to Costa Rica, sure, yeah. But the spirit aspect of me was like, okay, all right, okay, so yep, so we're moving to Costa Rica. And so, about like a month later, I packed up all of my things, packed up my apartment, packed up my car, and I got in a plane with two big suitcases and a backpack, and I moved to Costa Rica. And I'm still undergoing this huge detox and cleanse of candida, and I was also doing a parasite cleanse. And I arrived in this country with an open heart, with an open mind, and there really aren't words to experience the healing that occurred within my body, within my spirit, in a place that is so pure. I was living off grid in a house with no walls, drinking filtered river water, going to the river every single day. The food I was eating was so alive with sunlight. The vibration all around me was so coherent and so conscious, living in a community of people with the same values, where we speak the same language. It was so healing to live in the presence of other people and to be able to be fully authentic and fully myself, and to speak the deepest truth of my heart and my knowing, and to be understood and to be reflected. The jungle taught me about responsibility, because the life in the jungle is very physical and it's very masculine. And ever since I moved home from college, I have been so in my feminine energy. I have been so in the deep and the dark and the slow. And the jungle pushed me to acknowledge and see that I am a warrior. The jungle helped me forced me to acknowledge that I have the strength of 1,000 buffalo, that I have the ability to hold so much. And it also brought me so out of my egoic, really focused on self mode, which is a natural mode to be in when you are a young person and you're discovering who you are in the world. But living in community with other people, especially in a community like this, really shows you, okay, like I have to do what I have to do. I have to do what needs to be done for not even the good of myself, but for the good of this community that I'm a part of. I have a responsibility here. And I was humbled so much in the jungle, so much. And there's also nothing else you can do except look at yourself and explore your shadows. And I was living with people that really wanted to hear what was going on. And I had a roommate who was so incredible and we were so close. And I'm so grateful that we were together because it would have been so difficult to have to do all of that alone. And the jungle really showed me that we're not meant to do this alone. We're not meant to hold all of this alone. And being able to be together and to share with one another and to love with one another is so profound. And it is such a special place. I was around such inspiring people. I've met so many incredible people that have just helped me move forward on my path by just what they embody and their being. And it was so special to experience such untouched, wild nature and to have the privilege to be able to not only be in it, but to live in it. And I visited some really interesting places. And I remember this one time I was with a friend and we hiked in the first national park in Costa Rica and we were watching these monkeys jump in between these trees up high in the canopy. And there's so many. I don't know what kind of monkey it was, but I was just watching it and I was just overcome with gratitude. All I could do was cry because it was so beautiful witnessing this moment of like, wow, I have the privilege to be able to see this right now. And I'm also engaged in work that is helping me conserve moments like this so that we can have more moments like this to conserve these species and to conserve the human natural world relationship to make it more sustainable, more regenerative, and more harmonious so that we can continue being on this earth. And I just was so overcome and so overwhelmed. And there's so much about the jungle that just reflected an infinite amount of beauty and order and coherence. And I feel so honored that I was able to go there and to have that experience and to know that experiences like that are possible. I have experienced them, and there is just more coherence and more beauty to come. And it was really powerful for me to acknowledge that this is the life that I have attracted already. And it's just the beginning. I would say the jungle chapter for me was represented by clarity. The jungle was so heart opening and also opening to my masculine, my sense of action. I was so steeped in the feminine that I was so in my own individual experience, connecting to the primordial truth of life, connecting to the unconditional love of the womb, connecting to the spiritual dimension and seeing the truth, but then lacking in my ability to take action based on what I was seeing. And the jungle has taught me that it's not going to help anyone to just have all of these visions and these dreams inside my head and to not take any action on them, to not do anything about it. Like, what I am here to do is to have a healthy ego, to be a person in the world, and to bring spirit into form. And so, renewed with a new sense of purpose and direction of just taking action, I then went back home to the US for my dad's birthday with just the intention of being there for a few weeks and then to continue on my travels. But then everything happened with the US government and the lack of funding and all of that shifting happening. And the job that I was working with, the environmental psychologist, had to pause for a moment. And so I found myself exactly where I was a few years prior of moving home with no job, no consistent source of income, and not really an idea of what my next steps were going to be. But of course, I am completely a different person, completely renewed, and I have so much more wisdom and confidence and self esteem within myself because during that time, I allowed myself to see what I am made of. I have acknowledged that I actually have the capacity for a lot. And I have the ability to do so much, and I am so strong, and I am such a warrior. So it's like, okay, I'm here at my parents' house without a consistent source of income. What do I do now? Now I take the action to create my life, to bring all of the visions that I have and that are coming to me, bring them into form. Because I am here to make medicine for the world. I am here to use my life force energy in a way that serves life. And in reference to the first excerpt I read in this podcast, I now have the ability to overcome that fear that has been conditioned into me because I have free fallen into life and I have allowed life to show me that I am unconditionally supported. And I now know that I have the ability and the capacity to navigate confusion and uncertainty and pain and being triggered. And I know how to sit with it, to sit through it, and to alchemize it and transform it into more life. I know how to compost it and to create flourishing fruit. And that feels like the most important skill and resource to have in this life because we are in a constant process of evolution. So we are in a constant process of death and birth, decay into something new. And we are constantly going to just have to continue navigating the unknown and uncertainty and confusion. And it's necessary. It's the nature of this life, but also the nature of this life. And the nature of nature is that we are self-organizing, that we know how to move forward inherently and creatively. And the only thing that stops us from doing that is our own sense of fear and limitation because we do not believe in ourselves and because we feel disempowered. We feel that we aren't the ones in control, that we aren't the ones in power. But what if I told you that you are? What if I told you that you can change? And not only that you can change, but there is a responsibility that you hold to become all that you can be because life depends on it. Your fulfillment is that important. Your potential is that impactful. And you have the power and the ability to co-create the deepest visions of your heart. I pray that this is medicine for you and you feel now a little bit more equipped to navigate the awkward transition from conditioned existence to empowered creative living. I pray for your highest good. Thank you for listening.